Hey, I'm Jed Herne, and this is Daily Writing Advice. I got an interesting question for you today. What happens to your story if a character vanishes? Poof, they're gone in a cloud of dust. What happens to your story? Does it still work? Does the plot stay the same? Does the level of interest from readers stay the same? Basically, what I'm trying to figure out here is apply this question to your story and see if your main character, for instance, is actually essential to the plot. If you can take your main character out of the story, if you can just wave a magic wand and magically erase them from your manuscript, and your story's plot is still identical, then this might be a slight issue. Because while there are some great stories out there with passive protagonists who don't really do anything, I would cite Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as a kind of example of this. Arthur Dent doesn't really do a whole lot. He just sort of gets swept up in the story's events, and it is an amazing story, despite, or maybe even because of this fact. But in a lot of stories, it's more interesting to have active protagonists whose choices are driving the plot. So if you can make your protagonist disappear and nothing changes in your story, might be some issues there to rework. Secondary characters are where it gets a bit different, a bit more interesting. Because there's a reason why they're secondary characters, right? They're not as essential to your story's plot as your main character, or hopefully your main antagonist. Having said that, it is still valuable to apply this question to, let's say, the dozen most important characters in your book. Ask yourself as an author, what would happen if Bob, my protagonist, disappeared? I don't know why I use Bob, it's such a generic name. What would happen if Susie, my antagonist, also disappeared? What would happen if this other person disappeared, and this person disappeared, and this person disappeared? And then eventually you can start working out which characters are the linchpins, which ones are really driving the story. And if some characters aren't driving the story, if you can take them out and nothing has changed, maybe it is time to just take them out and roll some of their characteristics into the other characters, so that means you can have a more compact and more enjoyable story.